Hey, welcome back to my video series on the CAGED method. This is a video series that's going to take you from the beginning through everything you need to know to play rhythm and lead using the CAGED method. We're kind of jumping into the middle. If you want to check out some of the early videos, you can check out the links. I would highly recommend looking at the 3 pillars of CAGED. That's my video where I talk about the foundations of the CAGED method and everything you need to know to get the most out of it. So definitely start there if you hadn't seen that. What we're going to talk about today are root notes as anchor notes and what that means. Let's get started. So the 2 shapes that we've covered are the C shape and the A shape, meaning we've made movable voicings, we've made bar chords out of these 2 shapes, these 2 open chord shapes, and we're moving them around the neck in order to play different chords all over the neck. So to recap what we know for those, what we do is first pillar of CAGED, identify the shape and create a movable voicing. So that means playing the C shape like this. Now if you haven't seen that yet, go check that video out. I'm going to kind of breeze through that. There's a whole other video on this. So we have the C shape and we move it around and we understand that the root note is on the 5th string. So the chord is named after whatever this note is. D, D chord. E, E chord. G, G chord. So on and so forth. The A shape is very similar. We create a movable voicing and you can play it like this or like this. I prefer this way. And the 5th string is also the root note. D, D, E, E, G, G, etc. Cool, so that's what we know, and what we're going to dive into right now is the new stuff. Root notes as anchor notes. So when you have 2 CAGED shapes that have a root note on the same string, you can do something that's kind of interesting and I find is very helpful. You can use the root note as an anchor note between the 2 shapes, a hinge point between 2 shapes. So by knowing 1 note and 2 shapes, you can have 2 different pathways on the guitar neck. Let me explain. A lot of the times with CAGED, we think of CAGED shapes for different chords. So we can play like a D here with the C shape, and I can play an F here with the A shape. But what happens if I back this shape down the neck until it has the same root note as the C shape we played? D, D. What I get is 1 root note that opens up into 2 different CAGED shapes, an anchor between the 2 shapes. So this 5th string D, when played under the pinky, under the C shape, is a root note for that chord. And when it's played under the 1st finger for the A shape, it's a root note for that chord. Now, that might seem like obvious to some or super simple, but it's really cool because with the knowledge of 1 note, 1 string, and 2 shapes, we can actually cover a huge chunk of the neck. We now know how to play D between the 2nd fret to the 5th for the C shape and the 5th to the 7th for the A shape. So we can cover this huge chunk of the neck just with this one idea in these 2 shapes. If you add that to our open D chord, we can actually play a D for rhythm from the nut all the way up to the 7th fret. And all we need to know is 1 single note on the neck and 2 CAGED shapes. So the reason that this is powerful is it can create pathways. So maybe you want to play in this position, well, you might have the pinky note as the root. If you want to play more in this position, you'd have the 1st finger as the root. It gives you choices, it gives you options to play rhythm the way that you'd like to play rhythm, the way that works for you. So we take the root note of each shape and we anchor from it. When you play down the neck, you get a C shape. When you play up the neck, you get an A shape. Those are both the same chords played with 2 different CAGED shapes. Now, one thing you want to watch out for is to make sure that the note you're anchoring on, it has to be the root note. So, for example, if I thought that the root note was this ring finger in the C shape, and I thought the root note was the ring finger on the A shape, those 2 fingers, that 1 finger on those notes, would be part of this C shape and this A shape. Now you can probably hear those aren't the same chord, even though that note is the same between them. This is a D chord, and this is a B chord. But if you get confused about what the root note is, then you might try to anchor on the wrong note. We can only anchor on the root note. D, D. So, let's go ahead and just do an exercise. I'm going to play up the neck from C to C on the 5th string. I'm going to play the C shape of a chord and then the A shape of a chord, and then we'll move to the next natural notes. No sharps and flats for now. We'll do 2 beats per chord. C and then A, then the next chord, C and then A, next note, next chord, C and then A. 1, 2, 3, 4. We got C shape for C, A shape for C, C shape for D, A shape for D, C shape E, A shape E, C shape F, A shape F, C shape G, A shape G, C shape A shape A, C shape B, A shape B, C shape C, A shape C. So you can carve up the neck into chunks with this root note, anchor note idea. Let's review. If 2 cage shapes share a string upon which their root note lives, like the C shape and the A shape, we can anchor them at the root note and create 2 pathways from that root note, down the neck and up the neck. In the case of the C and the A shape, the 5th string is the root. Pinky on the C shape, play down the neck. First finger on the A shape, we play up the neck. And by doing this, we can minimize our entry level to CAGED, i.e. we only need to know 1 note on 1 string, and we only need to know 2 shapes, and with that we can carve up, be able to use a big chunk of the neck. So that is root notes as anchor notes. I hope that that is helpful. There's another video about this because guess what? The E and the G shape have a root note as an anchor note between them. So you can check out that video as well. Hope to see you in the next video in the series on the CAGED method. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps.